Burnout is a state of chronic physical and emotional exhaustion, often accompanied by cynicism and feelings of reduced ability or accomplishment. The term was first coined by psychologist Herbert Freudenberger in 1974, who observed it among overworked staff in free clinics and described it as exhaustion resulting from excessive demands and stress. Today, burnout is formally recognized as an occupational phenomenon by the World Health Organization. The WHO's International Classification of Diseases, ICD-11, defines burnout as a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed, characterized by three dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance or cynicism toward one's job, and a reduced sense of professional efficacy. Importantly, this definition confines burnout to the occupational context. It arises from work-related stresses and is not classified as a medical condition in itself. Burnout has gained broad attention in recent years as workplace stress levels continue to rise globally, leading experts to label it a crisis in modern work culture. Burnout usually develops gradually in response to a combination of stressors rather than a single catastrophic event. While specific triggers can vary by industry or role, research has identified several common contributors. A leading cause is overwhelming workload, taking on more work or working longer hours than one can sustainably handle. In a recent US survey, 43% of workers cited heavy workload as the primary trigger for their burnout symptoms. Related to workload is lack of resources or support. Employees who feel they don't have the tools, staff, or information to do their job effectively often experience higher stress. 37% in the same survey said resource deficits fueled their burnout. Poor management practices can also play a role. Micromanagement or overly controlling supervision was reported as a key burnout trigger by about 37% of workers, as it undermines autonomy. Additionally, toxic work environments characterized by interpersonal conflict, lack of trust, or even harassment were identified by 1/3 of workers as a major cause of burnout. Psychologists Christina Maslach and Michael Leiter, renowned burnout researchers, have framed these causes as mismatches in 6 key areas: workload, control, reward, community, fairness, and values. In essence, burnout risk rises when job demands chronically exceed the employee's capacity, when people have little say in how or when work gets done, when efforts feel unrewarded or unrecognized, when workplace relationships lack support or mutual respect, when there is perceived inequity, or when the work seems at odds with one's personal beliefs or goals. Many high-stress professions check several of these boxes. For example, healthcare workers often face long hours and intense emotional demands, sometimes with limited staffing or resources, contributing to burnout in medicine. Teachers and social workers may experience burnout due to large workloads, emotional strain, and modest rewards or recognition. First responders, like police and firefighters, and tech workers in fast-paced industries similarly report burnout tied to relentless demands and pressure. In short, any profession can breed burnout if the work culture involves chronic stress without sufficient support or balance. As a Forbes report summarized, burnout tends to emerge when people feel overloaded, undervalued, isolated, treated unfairly, or torn between their job's demands and their personal life. Burnout has become alarmingly common across many countries. In the United States, surveys consistently show a majority of workers have experienced burnout. For instance, a Gallup study of 7,500 full-time employees found 23% of respondents felt burned out at work very often or always, and an additional 44% felt burned out sometimes. This means roughly 2/3 of US workers experience burnout on the job at least occasionally. Other US polls report even higher numbers. A 2018 Deloitte survey found 77% of professionals had experienced burnout at their current job, and a 2021 Indeed survey showed 52% of workers feeling burned out, a jump of 9 percentage points from the pre-pandemic level. Burnout rates spiked further during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially in frontline sectors like healthcare and education, leading to what some called a burnout epidemic among essential workers. In fact, by 2022, the US Surgeon General issued an advisory warning that healthcare worker burnout was fueling staffing shortages and posing a threat to the public health system. Internationally, burnout is a widespread issue as well. A global study spanning around 100 countries found that 43% of respondents experienced workplace burnout in 2020, up from 39% in 2019. In the UK, recent reports indicate at least 79% of employees have dealt with some form of burnout, with about 1/3 reporting high or extreme levels of burnout. Another UK survey found roughly 1 in 5 workers, or 22%, had experienced formal job-related burnout, though the prevalence varies by how burnout is defined. Other European research echoes these trends. For example, a pan-European study of general practice physicians found burnout prevalence ranging from 32% to 43% in different countries. In Australia, a study reported 43.8% of midwives had work-related burnout. Burnout is particularly common in high-stress fields. One US study found physicians were twice as likely to report burnout compared to the general working population. Across industries, an estimated 73% of US employees say they have suffered from burnout symptoms in their current job. These statistics underscore that burnout is not a localized problem, but a pervasive challenge in the modern workforce. Burnout often manifests in a constellation of physical, emotional, and psychological symptoms. Many of these signs may start subtly and worsen over time. Physical symptoms are common. Chronic fatigue and low energy are classic hallmarks. Sufferers often feel exhausted even after rest, describing an empty tank feeling. In one large survey, 42.8% of employees said they felt tired or drained most of the time as a result of their work. Persistent sleep problems often accompany burnout. People may experience insomnia or restless sleep, or conversely feel an urge to sleep excessively and still not feel refreshed. Tension headaches and muscle aches are frequent complaints. One study found 65% of people with burnout reported frequent headaches versus 41% without burnout. Gastrointestinal issues can also emerge. Stomach pain, bowel disturbances, nausea or indigestion have been reported significantly more in burned-out individuals. These physical symptoms reflect the body's stress response being in overdrive for too long. Emotional and psychological signs are equally telling. Burnout tends to erode one's enthusiasm and motivation. Work or other responsibilities that once felt meaningful may now provoke apathy or dread. People suffering burnout often report cynicism or negativity, especially about their job or those they work with. They may feel detached or emotionally numb regarding work. In a US workforce survey, about 32% of respondents said they felt detached or disengaged due to burnout, and 27% admitted to having a more cynical or negative outlook than before. Irritability and moodiness often increase. Minor frustrations can trigger disproportionate anger or annoyance. Burned-out individuals may become short-tempered with colleagues or loved ones, which they rarely did before. Emotionally, there can be a prevailing sense of helplessness or feeling trapped in a bad situation. Nearly 32% in the same survey felt helpless, trapped, or defeated due to burnout. Self-confidence usually plummets as well. People feel ineffective or start doubting their abilities, with 27% reporting heightened self-doubt. This aligns with the third core dimension of burnout, a reduced sense of accomplishment or efficacy. It's important to note that burnout symptoms often overlap with those of clinical depression and anxiety, which can make diagnosis tricky. Both burnout and depression can involve exhaustion, cynicism, and reduced performance. One distinguishing aspect is that burnout is typically tied to situational stressors like one's job, whereas depression can arise without an external trigger. Nonetheless, the two conditions frequently co-occur. Studies have found a strong correlation between burnout and depression. Burnout can precipitate depressive episodes and vice versa. In practical terms, someone with burnout may find that even thinking about work triggers anxiety or fatigue, and they struggle to concentrate. Mind-wandering is a noted symptom. Other warning signs include loss of enjoyment in things that used to be pleasurable, withdrawal from social interactions, and a general blunting of emotion. Family or friends might notice the person becoming more isolated or talking about feeling useless or overwhelmed. In extreme cases, some individuals may cope in unhealthy ways. About 3 to 4% admit to increased alcohol or substance use to deal with work burnout, and research indeed links burnout with higher risk of alcohol and drug misuse as people attempt to self-medicate their stress. Recognizing these signs early is crucial, as burnout typically worsens without intervention. Burnout doesn't just make you feel lousy day to day. It can have serious long-term consequences for both mental and physical health. Psychologically, chronic burnout can escalate into clinical conditions. It is a strong predictor for depression and anxiety disorders. Over time, the constant state of stress and hopelessness can lead to major depressive episodes or generalized anxiety, especially if a person has underlying vulnerabilities. Burnout is also associated with sleep disturbances like insomnia or unrestful sleep, which in turn can aggravate mood disorders. In one 18-month study of 5,000 workers, researchers found a clear two-way link. Burnout contributed to insomnia, and lack of sleep worsened burnout. When left unaddressed, severe burnout might contribute to chronic fatigue syndrome or breakdown. Physically, the stress of burnout triggers a cascade of harmful effects on the body. In 2019, the World Health Organization cautioned that prolonged workplace stress and resultant burnout is bad for your heart, your blood pressure, and your brain. A comprehensive 2017 systematic review in PLOS One linked job burnout to a host of medical problems, including coronary heart disease, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, and gastrointestinal issues, as well as to somatic symptoms like headaches and sleep impairment. For example, in one large longitudinal study of over 8,000 adults, those with high burnout were significantly more likely to develop coronary heart disease over the next few years. Chronic stress provokes a constant release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which, when sustained, can damage the cardiovascular system, contributing to hypertension, atherosclerosis, and higher risk of heart attacks or stroke. Indeed, an Israeli study led by Sharon Toker found that severe burnout was a significant risk factor for future heart disease. Burnout can also weaken the immune system. People experiencing burnout may find themselves getting sick more often, catching colds, flus, or other infections due to stress-related immune suppression. They might also suffer stress-related ailments like tension headaches, migraines, or flare-ups of gastrointestinal disorders like IBS. Musculoskeletal pain, such as back pain and neck tension, is another common complaint. Furthermore, burnout often leads to unhealthy coping behaviors that compound health risks. Sufferers might smoke more, drink more alcohol, rely on caffeine or junk food, and skip exercise and medical appointments. These behaviors, driven by exhaustion or attempts to find quick relief, can result in weight gain, poor nutrition, and less physical fitness, creating a vicious cycle that impacts health. Research by Harvard and Stanford scholars even estimated that workplace stress, including burnout, contributes to an extra $125 to $190 billion in healthcare costs per year in the US, about 5 to 8% of total national spending. Over the long term, severe burnout has been linked to a higher risk of early mortality. One study famously suggested that stressful jobs and overwork 55+ hours per week are associated with significantly greater risk of stroke and heart disease death. In sum, the toll of burnout extends well beyond the mind. It can ravage the body and undermine one's health span if not addressed. In the workplace, the effects of burnout are directly detrimental to performance and engagement. Exhausted and disengaged employees are far less productive. Studies have shown that burnout leads to increased errors and accidents on the job. For instance, among healthcare staff, higher burnout correlates with more medical mistakes and poorer quality of care. Burnout saps concentration and creativity, so work tasks take longer and critical details get missed. One survey found that 33% of employees reported being less focused at work due to burnout, and 21% admitted to more procrastination when burned out. Not surprisingly, job performance ratings tend to drop when someone is in burnout. People feel they're muddling through work at best. Burnout also hammers job satisfaction and commitment. It's hard to feel enthusiastic about your job when you're emotionally drained and cynical. Research has linked burnout with low morale and a diminished sense of pride or meaning in one's work. In advanced stages, it can foster a hostile or detached attitude. Burned-out employees may become impatient with clients or co-workers and withdraw from teamwork. One study noted that burnout was associated with more interpersonal difficulties at work and even hostile attitudes toward patients in healthcare settings. People in burnout often feel alienated. They don't identify with the organization's goals anymore, which erodes loyalty. As a result, burnout is a major driver of turnover and career change. Numerous surveys indicate that burned-out individuals are much more likely to be job hunting or planning to quit. Gallup data showed that employees suffering burnout were 2.6 times more likely to actively be seeking a different job. In another poll, nearly two-thirds, 64% of US workers said they had considered leaving their current job specifically due to burnout and its symptoms. In high burnout fields, this has translated into real staffing crises. For example, chronic burnout among nurses and doctors has contributed to many leaving the profession or taking early retirement, exacerbating healthcare workforce shortages. Burnout can thus truncate career longevity. Even passionate professionals may hit a breaking point where they feel forced to step away from a career they once loved, simply to recover. One Canadian study estimated the economic cost of physician burnout in terms of lost work hours and early retirement at over $200 million over 2 decades. At an organizational level, high burnout leads to absenteeism, people calling in sick more frequently, and presenteeism, people coming to work but performing poorly. Gallup found burned-out employees are 63% more likely to take a sick day, and other analyses have linked burnout-related depression to the equivalent of 32 lost workdays per year in productivity. Over time, teams with high burnout see declines in overall performance and innovation. It's clear that for both individuals and employers, unchecked burnout is costly. It drains the human capital that careers and businesses depend on. Burnout doesn't stay confined to the workplace. It often spills over into one's personal and family life, with significant social and emotional fallout. When someone is chronically exhausted and stressed, they typically have less energy and patience left for loved ones. Irritability from work can carry into home interactions. Small annoyances with a spouse or family member can spark disproportionate anger. Psychologists note that the moodiness and detachment born of burnout will affect one's relationships. People become easily annoyed by their partner, lose interest in shared activities, and may even experience a lowered libido as a result of work-related burnout. In other words, the emotional numbness and cynicism that characterize burnout can manifest as distancing in personal relationships. A burned-out individual might withdraw socially, preferring to be alone, which loved ones may interpret as coldness or neglect. They might cancel plans with friends, stop participating in family routines, or be physically present but emotionally checked out. This can strain friendships and erode intimate bonds. Family life often bears the brunt. Work-family conflict tends to rise when burnout is present. Long hours or mental preoccupation with work means less involvement at home. Parents experiencing burnout, whether from job or caregiving, might find themselves too drained to engage with their children, potentially leading to guilt or worsening family dynamics. In severe cases, parental burnout, a related concept, can emerge, marked by feeling detached from one's children and doubting one's parenting effectiveness. Partners of burned-out individuals report feeling a lack of connection or support. Research described by Psychology Today explains that our feelings don't exist in isolation. If you're burned out at work, those feelings of anxiety, depression, or detachment travel with us into other domains of life. It becomes harder to compartmentalize stress. As one expert put it, when your partner is stressed at work, they become less pleasant to be around at home. Over time, this can weaken relationship satisfaction and communication. It's sadly ironic. Burnout makes people withdraw from exactly the relationships that could provide emotional support and resilience. Even strong relationships may suffer when one or both partners are chronically depleted. Beyond the household, burnout can curtail one's social life and support network. Someone who is perpetually exhausted might stop seeing friends, skip social functions, or disengage from community activities they once enjoyed. They might also feel misunderstood. Unless others have been through it, they may not grasp why the person is never available or always in a doer mood. This social isolation can worsen feelings of depression. In some, burnout's ripple effects touch all corners of a person's life. It can turn a normally empathetic, upbeat person into one who is irritable, withdrawn, and joyless, straining their connections to others. Recognizing this, mental health professionals sometimes involve family in burnout recovery, both to help the sufferer get support and to mend any relational damage that occurred during the burnout period. Recovering from burnout is absolutely possible, but it takes deliberate effort and time. In the short term, the immediate priority is to reduce exposure to stressors and replenish energy. Experts emphasize that the first step is acknowledging you are burned out and giving yourself permission to take a step back. This often means taking a break. If feasible, take some time off work, whether a vacation, a mental health day, or a leave of absence to physically and mentally rest. Creating distance from the source of stress allows your system to begin recovering. In less acute cases, even brief micro breaks during the workday can help, a short walk, a 10-minute meditation, etc. As research shows, these can reduce stress accumulation. It's also important to prioritize basic self-care in the short term. Ensure you are getting sufficient sleep, nutrition, and hydration, as these are the foundation of resilience. Exhausted individuals often neglect these basics, so consciously re-establishing a healthy sleep schedule and regular meals can start restoring equilibrium. Engaging in relaxing or pleasurable activities can jumpstart recovery as well. Simple things like taking a warm bath, spending time in nature, or enjoying a hobby, reading, gardening, playing music, help reintroduce positive experiences and signal to your body that it's okay to shift out of survival mode. In fact, one evidence-based recovery approach is scheduling joyful activities or hobbies into your week as if they were appointments. This helps rebuild a sense of personal fulfillment. Light exercise is another powerful antidote. Gentle physical activity, even a brisk 15-minute walk, can reduce stress hormones and improve mood. Over time, building up to regular exercise is ideal, as it's proven to combat depression and anxiety and improve energy levels. Mind-body practices such as yoga, deep breathing exercises, or mindfulness meditation are also highly recommended to engage the relaxation response and retrain your stress reaction. These can be started in the short term and continued long term. In parallel, addressing the underlying issues is key for long-term recovery. This often involves some soul-searching and re-evaluation. A person in burnout should reflect on what factors led them there. Was it an overwhelming workload, a mismatch in career fit, lack of boundaries? Identifying the root causes will guide the changes needed going forward. Many people benefit from seeking professional help during this phase. Talking to a therapist or counselor can provide a safe space to process feelings and develop coping strategies. Therapists can also help distinguish burnout from other conditions like clinical depression and recommend treatment accordingly. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT for example, is a structured approach that can help reframe negative thoughts about work and teach stress management techniques. If anxiety or depression are co-occurring, a therapist might suggest medication as a temporary support, though not everyone will require it. Another crucial component of recovery is social support. Burnout often makes people retreat, but recovering folks are encouraged to reconnect with friends, family, or support groups and communicate what they're going through. Simply sharing your struggles with someone empathetic can lighten the emotional load. As the saying goes, a problem shared is a problem halved. Practical support can flow from this too. Perhaps a family member can help with chores while you recuperate, or a colleague can assist with tasks as you ease back into work. Don't be afraid to ask for help or delegate where possible. Learning to say no and set limits is part of recovery and prevents future relapses. In fact, setting healthy boundaries, such as protecting personal time, refusing additional responsibilities when one is at capacity, and unplugging from work after hours is an essential skill to carry forward. During recovery, one might practice boundary setting by, for example, not checking work email in the evenings or ensuring at least one day off each week is truly work-free. As recovery progresses, it can also be helpful to reassess your goals and values. Burnout can cloud your sense of purpose. Taking time to clarify what you want from your career and life can guide you in making adjustments. Some individuals find they need a change in their job role or even a career shift if the current one is consistently unhealthy for them. Others might negotiate modified duties, flexible hours, or continued remote work to better manage stress. Recovery isn't always linear. It can take months and sometimes a couple of years to fully climb out of severe burnout, depending on how long the burnout persisted and how deep its roots were. Patience is important. With consistent self-care, support, and possibly professional guidance, people do emerge from burnout. Many report that the experience, while painful, taught them critical lessons about balance and self-compassion that help them thrive in the long run. Preventing burnout is far easier and kinder than trying to fix it after the fact. Effective prevention requires action on two levels: organizational, workplace policies and culture, and personal self-care and habit. On the organizational side, research and expert consensus point to addressing the same 6 fundamental factors discussed earlier: workload, control, reward, community, fairness, values, to create a sustainable work environment. Practically, this means employers should ensure that workloads are reasonable. For example, by hiring adequate staff, distributing tasks fairly, and not chronically demanding overtime. Simply giving people the time and tools needed to do their jobs can drastically reduce burnout risk. Companies should also strive to increase employees' sense of control over their work. Allow flexible scheduling where possible, involve staff in decision-making, or at least communicate changes transparently, and avoid micromanaging. Reward and recognition are important too. Employees who feel valued and appreciated are less likely to burn out. This doesn't just mean pay, though fair compensation matters. It includes acknowledging contributions, celebrating wins, and providing growth opportunities or promotions in line with performance. Creating a positive community at work can buffer stress. Employers can encourage teamwork, mentorship programs, and peer support groups so that employees feel connected rather than isolated. Training managers to lead with empathy and check in regularly on their team's well-being is another powerful step. Fairness in workplace practices, be it in workload distribution, recognition, or advancement, is critical. Perceived unfairness, for example, if only certain employees consistently bear the brunt of grunt work, or if promotions don't follow merit, breed cynicism and disengagement. Employers should audit their practices to ensure equity and address grievances transparently. Finally, reinforcing a sense of values and purpose in the work can protect against burnout. When people understand how their role contributes to a meaningful mission, they're more resilient to stress. Leaders can help by frequently communicating the organization's purpose and how each employee's work makes a difference, aligning tasks with bigger picture goals. Beyond these cultural elements, there are specific policies companies can implement to reduce burnout. The American Heart Association, for example, recommends policies such as guaranteeing paid time off and encouraging employees to actually use it, offering flexible or remote work options to help work-life balance, providing access to mental health resources or employee assistance programs, EAPs, setting limits on after-hours email expectations, and training staff at all levels to recognize and address early signs of burnout. In one AHA survey, organizations that had all 9 of their recommended anti-burnout policies in place saw 91% of employees reporting positive well-being, compared to only 51% in organizations with none. Even small incremental changes in policy can yield improvements in employee well-being. For example, instituting regular no-meeting times or brief rest breaks can help employees recharge. Companies might also periodically survey employees about burnout and stressors, then take concrete action on the feedback. This shows employees that their well-being is a priority, and it allows targeted interventions. Ultimately, preventing burnout is in an employer's best interest as well. Reducing burnout can significantly improve retention, productivity, and even a company's financial performance. On the individual level, workers can adopt habits to guard against burnout. Self-care is not just a buzzword. It's a vital practice for sustainability. This includes maintaining regular sleep, exercise, and healthy eating routines, as these keep your body and mind resilient. For instance, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night and observing good sleep hygiene, like keeping consistent bedtimes and creating a relaxing pre-sleep routine, can prevent the cumulative exhaustion that predisposes burnout. Regular physical activity, even moderate, has been shown to boost mood and reduce stress. One doesn't need to become a gym enthusiast, but aiming for the recommended 150 minutes of exercise per week, or whatever is manageable, can be protective. Eating a balanced diet is also helpful, as high stress can deplete nutrients and tempt us into sugar or caffeine binges that lead to crashes. A study even found that frequent consumption of fruits, vegetables, and other healthy foods was associated with lower burnout levels. Beyond the basics, individuals should practice boundary setting and time management to keep work from endlessly bleeding into personal life. This could mean setting an alarm to signal the end of the workday and then unplugging or not checking emails on weekends except for true emergencies. It's important to carve out regular downtime for relaxation and hobbies. Schedule that painting class or game night with friends just as you would schedule a work meeting. Staying connected socially is a buffer against stress. Make time to nurture relationships and ask for support when needed. If you notice early signs of burnout, mounting irritability or dread on Sunday nights, address them sooner rather than later. This might involve having a conversation with your manager about adjusting workload or seeking mentorship to tackle challenges. Utilizing vacation days before you hit a breaking point is another smart preventative tactic. time off is not a luxury, but rather essential maintenance. For those in caregiving or people-heavy professions, mixing in some recovery time between intense engagements can help, even short respites or varied duties to break monotony. Mindfulness techniques practiced regularly can increase your awareness of stress levels and help you recalibrate. For example, taking a few minutes each day for deep breathing, meditation, or journaling about your stress can illuminate patterns and solutions. Some individuals find keeping a journal of their mood and energy helps detect burnout early and prompts them to slow down when entries show persistent fatigue or negativity. In summary, prevention is about balance and awareness, balancing work with rest, achievement with recognition, and being aware of your own limits and needs. When both employers and individuals commit to these preventive measures, burnout can be not only managed, but often avoided, creating a healthier, more sustainable work life for all. Burnout has evolved from a little-known phenomenon to a well-documented occupational hazard, and experts across fields agree on its seriousness. Christina Maslach, who pioneered burnout research, emphasizes that burnout is a problem of the whole environment, not just the individual, underscoring that workplaces must fix the conditions that breed burnout rather than